scratch, wampum, dough, sugar, clams, loot, bills, bones, bread, bucks, money. Money is, at its essence, that measure.
Welcome to the Ozark podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jamie G. Esquire, the fifth MD, Master of Surgical Arts. No, I will not perform surgery on you. I am here with my main man, the co-host, Magnum Mills, and we're going to make sure that we're getting you ready for the final 7 episodes of Ozark. They are literally only days away. I cannot wait. Magnum Mills, introduce yourself to these fine people and give them a heads up of what the hell we're doing on this Ozark podcast.
Howdy there, fine people. Magnum Mills here, and thanks again for checking us out. Please remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you're following the podcast, give us a ranking, leave a comment or something. Love hearing feedback. Helps us out a lot. Really appreciate it. And on this episode, we're going to revisit the predictions we initially made for season 4, part 2, back when season 1 ended, and maybe see, how that's worked out now that we've had a little bit of time to marinate on things.
That is right, Mills. It's been a hot minute. We've had some time to really think about shit, dude. So we need to decide if we want to stand by these predictions or if we want to make some changes.
I think that's pretty much the key. We also reserve the right to make some random new predictions that we may or may not come up with on the fly. I mean, because it has been a minute, so I at least have some thoughts in there.
I feel the same way, my dude. Before we talk turkey here, though, I just want to remind everybody that we will be spoiling the ever-loving shit. All aired episodes of Ozark, anything in the Ozark universe is on the table here. We're going to, just to show, we're not going to be discussing any possible set leaks or screeners, but interviews with the cast and creators are definitely fair game here, Magnum Mills.
And before we get started, here's a little bit of trivia that could win you a little something over at the Blue Cat Lounge. Fair Game was a film from 1995 that attempted to make Cindy Crawford into a movie star. It didn't work, but that's probably because they should have given her a better co-star than Billy Baldwin.
Zoinks. I haven't exactly been keeping up with the Baldwins, but I don't think that he's one of the good ones. Is he, Magnum Mills?
I honestly don't know. I just remember, I think it was a Family Guy bit where they had Alec Baldwin as the mother dog and all the other Baldwin puppies as his puppies nursing off of him, and he called one of them the weak one. I couldn't remember what that is, but seriously, the Ozark podcast, Baldwin free zone. Love 30 Rock though. Fair Game, not the greatest film, but it was one of the first times we got to see Selma Hayek on the big screen. Fucking Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore shows up. Not a total loss. And once again, let me remind you, it stars in her prime Cindy Crawford.
Is there something going on here, Mills? Did you I don't know, buy an NFT of Fair Game or something, man? What's happening here?
I don't know, man. I'm not really into the NFT game, and I'm not going to say that I won the rights to the movie Fair Game in a game of underground Monopoly, but I'm also going to not say that I won the rights to Fair Game in an underground Monopoly game.
Where exactly would one go to play in an underground Monopoly game?
Allegedly. Such an
allegedly.
event, allegedly, may or may not take place at a Detroit Marriott actually, it's right in the room next to where the latest World Series of Dice was happening.
Wow. So we are going to talk about Ozark, or are we just going to keep going with whatever you're doing here? Are you doing a thing here? I think he's doing a thing here, guys.
I swear, Jamie G, if I didn't know better, I'd say that you don't know shit about fuck.
And Mills, if I wanted to keep kidding around with you, I'd say you're witty and oh so handsome.
Touche. I'm round. You get that round one for you. Ding, 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 ding. All right, that's predictions, huh?
Yes, sir, Magnum Mills. So kind of recapping some of the predictions here. The big one that we started with was the car accident. So I went with the birds are out. They're on their way with a better life. And then they either, they all die in the accident. And it's that's the way it ends, which I think would take tremendous balls. And Ruth kind of wraps it up for us at the bird's funeral. We kind of see her there. After watching the first part of season 4 here and having a chance to think about it, I just don't know if the show creators will have the balls to actually do that. That would be a huge thing, and it would make it so there's never anything else. There's never a movie. There's never it just would create so much finality. I'm not so sure they're going to do that. So I am going to say that the accident, somehow, some way, it's not real. I mean, the car literally gets in an accident, but it's a setup. They're not in it. Something happens to kind of either A, convince the FBI, or B, convince the cartel, or C, convince everyone that they died in that car crash.
You're coming around to my side of things, where I said basically that was going to be the way that they got out of it, by faking their deaths there somehow. I think I'm still sticking with some version of that. I can tell you what I don't want, and it's to be like a bait and switch, where it's just like a completely different random accident that happened to be the same looking minivan, but like just down the road from them or something. I'll be a little upset if that's that kind of thing. I think that's a little bit amateurish, especially if you're going to hinge the final part of your final season of your show on it. So I think it has to be a big plot point. It can't be a red herring here. If it is, I'm going to be disappointed. I guess the one interesting thing here, let's do a little Special Agent Johnson whatnot here. Do you think it happens in the first episode of the second part, in the final episode of the second part, or in one of the in-between episodes?
Whew, man. We got one glimpse of this thing in the first episode of season 4. I think we get a glimpse of it in the first episode of part 2 and in the last episode of the season. I think it comes back twice, that storyline.
You counting the trailer from the first 7 episodes of the season? Because I think it'd be a little cheap for them to do that same trick again. I guess they could maybe say show the aftermath of it, but if
the story, I meant the storyline. Either we get a glimpse of something to do with that story, either leading up to that moment.
Okay. All right.
And then we get another glimpse of it.
Right. Not just extended footage of that scene.
Yeah, no, not just a car accident. Yeah, no. I'm talking about that plot.
Yeah, I'm going to lay it down, and I'm going to go with that's the scene that ends episode 6, the penultimate episode. That's how I'm calling it. That's somehow like that, because you're not really expecting it, right? You get almost all the way through it, and you figure, like, okay, that's going to happen in the finale. That would make sense. Bam! That's how they hit you at the end of episode 6. So that's going to be my prediction there for the car accident.
Love it, Magnum.
I mean, that's a big thing. So, I mean, anything else on that before we go on?
No, I mean, I agree with you that it's good. I think it's plays a big role. They can't just drop that bomb because they're like, oh, this would be a cool ass way to start the season and then never do anything with it. I mean, that would just be unthinkable.
One more for you then. So you got 4 birds in that car, right?
Yep.
At the end of the series, how many of those 4 birds are still alive?
Oh, bro. That's a tough one.
That's what we're here for, though. I mean, this is it, dude.
Yeah, this is all the kit and caboodles. I'm going to say 3 of the 4. I think either Marty or Wendy has to die.
I'm going to go with all 4 birds live, but I was thinking we'll get around to it later. I think I'm going to stick with my Marty goes to jail. So, but they all live, but they're all not necessarily happily ever after at the end. And let's go to the other end of the spectrum and do kind of the, something else, another wide range of outcomes here. Let's talk about Mel Satin, the Private Eye. Because he's a guy they basically just seeded throughout those first 7 episodes to kind of get you intrigued more or less, but we still don't even really know exactly what he's looking for. He's not really looking for Helen just for the ex-husband or something. I think we're both agreeing with that. So it's just a matter of like, who is this dude? Who is he aligned with? What are his real goals? So where do you stand on the private dick, Jamie G?
Look, man, he's definitely not here just for a signature and then he goes home. We know that. We also know that is there a cooler dude driving around Ozark in a kick-ass car, freaking playing the air guitar and steering wheel drums, chewing on gum, jamming to cool tunes? This guy's awesome.
Dude, fifth grade me thinks he's the best.
He's loves him. He's great.
He's not Pondy, but he's pretty
He's
cool.
not Pondy, but he's cool as shit, dude. But here's what I think about Mel Strat. I think he's going to play a big, if not major role here down the stretch. I think he's going to be heavily involved, at least as much in the first one, but probably in a more impactful way here on the second half of this. I also think he's tied to the cartel somehow. An interesting thing happened in that last episode of the first part of season 4 that we touched on, where the kids, right, Charlotte and Jonah, are at the hotel, Ruth's hotel, and they go to hide where Buddy is in the grave, and they've got guns. Well, as they're leaving the hotel, who's there peeking around the corner watching them? Mel. Later in that episode, Wendy's on the phone with the head of the cartel, and he tells her, "I'm disappointed in you, Wendy." And he also says, "And by the way, your kids didn't need to hide with guns. We would never touch children. So he knew. So I think there's something there. It would be weird for them to just show Mel watching the kids walking away and not actually have it. So I think I had a moment of brilliance there, Magnum Mills, where I connected the dots on that. And I think he's somehow tied to the cartel, and we see something with that as we get through the back half of season 4.
I agree with. I like how you're actually tying it some actual like anecdotal evidence there, so that's cool. I'm with that. Definitely think his role is going to grow. You don't bring him in and see him there if he's not going to play a major role. You just do that so people can't complain like, oh shit, who's this major character who came out of nowhere in the last 7 episodes? I think they've set him up well enough, but I'm going to go on the flip side and say he's just kind of one of those dudes who's literally out there for the highest bidder, basically, or whatever. So even if he is cartel aligned currently, I think in the end game he winds up on Team Ruth one way or the other.
Ooh, I like that, Magnum Mills. So
she's got a way, right? She's got that magnetism. She tends to bring people over to her side. I feel, get people to, see things her way, so to speak.
Yes, she does. And that would be a really cool alignment, as right now it appears it is Ruth versus the world. So that would be pretty cool. Anything else with Magnum Mills, before we move on to another character here?
No, I mean, let's keep it right in that realm. Go from the private dick to a Mr. Fix-It. Talk about Jim Rattlesdorf here, the Bird's personal fixer at this point. I basically said that somehow he was going to use all of what's going on to increase his own personal and or political standing, and that he'd turn on the Birds. I stand by that he will try to do that, and he, will turn on the Birds. I'm also saying he doesn't make it out of, he ain't making it out of Harlem alive. So he is kaputnik by the end of the season. So sorry, Jim. That's what happens in the life of a fixer, man. Only Winston Wolfe gets to see the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's tough when you're a fixer. For me, Magnum Mills, I agree with a lot you said. For Jim, I think somehow, some way, he sleeps with Wendy. I had on my notes he bangs Wendy. I'm going to stick with that. I think they have some weird, strange sex thing that's just a weird one-off. And not that Wendy has time for banging dudes, but there's a little bit of strange sexual energy there between Wendy and Jim, and I think it grows. No pun intended. I also think he starts off the season helping Wendy grow her political career. I think she takes a step forward this season, like she has every other season in her world of politics, including maybe a potential run for office. And I think that's, maybe not like, I'm not talking about like POTUS, but I'm talking about like local office, local government. I could see maybe something like that happening. I think Jim ends up being used, controlled by the cartel, and he meets his fate. And maybe, just maybe, as he's meeting his fate, he does one honest stand-up thing and dies.
So, it's a little bit of, let's just call it prognosis negative for Jim here overall at the end of the day.
That is accurate, Magnum Mills, 100%. Let's keep it with these kind of side characters here. And look,
well, you didn't want to be mean. He didn't want to say, let's keep it with prognosis negative, but let's talk about Maya Miller and the FBI. That's what you were too nice to say.
That's what I was too nice to say, because, and anyone who's listened to the Ozark podcast knows I have a bone to pick with the FBI plot line. And I particularly, just when I thought maybe they were onto something in season 3 with Maya Miller showing up as a forensic accountant analyst, basically investigating the accounting and the books of Marty Bird's businesses. That was a real threat to Marty. I like that. Then all of a sudden we go into this episode, and she's just like, the Birds are just admitting that they work with the cartel, and she's like going rogue. And they just botch it left and right here with the FBI. Anyways, I had on my notes that Agent Miller begins to work closely with Marty again without Wendy's knowledge. I still think that probably happens. Marty gains her trust, and they work together here. Wendy's probably going to be pissed at her because she kind of screwed over the whole thing with what they were trying to do with Omar. I still think the FBI storyline is going to suck, dude. I think it's one thing that's been consistent throughout the show. There's not a lot of bad things about the show. It's a great show, but one thing that they've really swing and a miss on repeatedly here, season after season, is the FBI storyline. I think that continues to see the rest of this season.
Yeah, unfortunately, it really does feel like they took all the wrong notes from, say, The Sopranos or a show like that, where you kind of feel, because you're a crime show, you have to have this law enforcement plot line, and it's always felt a bit shoehorned in, and just even maybe just some of the choices were off. I will say I predicted before that Maya Miller, she also bites the bullet here, literally. I'll go a little bit more specific and say that Marty does start trying to work with her, and it's her death that kind of puts him to the point where he has to make a decision, like go full Scarface, embrace the shit, or find a different way to make a deal or whatever. And that's why, how he winds up going to prison in the end. Either way, if Maya Miller does not make it, her child will absolutely make it, because Ozark's cold, but they ain't that fucking cold.
Magnum Mills, does she meet her fate by the hands of Javi? Gundy or Johnson? Guard your groin.
I think so.
Javi pulls the
almost
trigger.
has to. He has to be someone who can get close enough to her, possibly with a weapon or whatever like that. And Javi seems like the kind of guy who take pleasure in doing it himself. He wouldn't farm it out to one of his guys, I don't think.
Yep. No, he would take pleasure in that, especially when he understands what's.
Or you consider it the proper way to do business or what have you. That feels very Javi.
It's very Javi. He's a man of respect and tradition, so to speak. Magnum Mills, let's move on to our favorite joke, our favorite Mr. Goofball, just our favorite all-around fun, nice guy, innocent, dumb, but we love him dearly. That's Sam Dermody. And I had that Sam is going to continue to do Sam shit, and I fully believe he's going to continue to be Sam and do Sam shit, whatever role they put him in. I really enjoyed him just being kind of a buffling buffoon in Ruth's hotel, and maybe that continues. Maybe Ruth puts him to work in a different way. I think that would be pretty cool. I don't think he gets killed. You can't kill Sam. He's innocent. It's like a child. You can't. I lump him in the same category.
Yeah, basically, he just kind of like he's the reverse of Britney Spears. Maybe he is that innocent. You never know. And I'm going to go with that. He lives. I'm going to hope at the end he hits it big at a casino and goes into some kind of cool poly relationship with a bunch of strippers or something. Maybe he can't get one to love him, but he can get 10 to love him 10% of the time each to make up for 100% of love for him. Whatever works. It's a little bit of math for you. But I will say, ultimately, before the end of the season is done, he does something inadvertently that is a big plot impact. You know how he is accidentally letting shit slip, like he did to Wendy about seeing Marty or Wendy to Marty, whatever it was, at the hotel. We saw the one and the other when I think it was Wendy was getting the shit to set Jonah up or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and he inadvertently lets it slip. So I think something like that happens one more time, where even if he's not, he doesn't even understand what he knows and he just lets it slip. But because he's Sam, he kind of just, Looney Tunes his way out of there somehow.
You are the mathematician. I love the concept. I'm hoping for that for Sam. And, give me a Sam spinoff that's like a 20-minute comedy joint, like just Sam doing weird shit.
I see. I didn't want it because that kind of gets into the minisode territory, but kind of how you would have like an unexpected spinoff of something. It would be really interesting to spin this kind of dark Ozark show off into just a really absurdist comedy with Sam Dermody, and it would keep the brand alive. Who knows? This day and age, everyone wants to have a franchise.
Smiling with Sam, bro. I like it. Let's move on to Frank Cosgrove Jr., the man without a peener. I'm hoping that he improves the Mafia storyline. I think he will improve not the Mafia storyline, but he will become a good character that just kind of eliminates the Mafia storyline. And now it's just Frank Cosgrove Jr. And I think that's a win for the show. I just don't think they have the ability to really fix what in my opinion they missed with the Mafia storyline. And I get it, they didn't want to make this a Mafia show. They've already got the cartel, they already got all this other shit going on in the world of the birds, that they didn't really need the Mafia, but they chose to incorporate them, and then they just made it really weak. So I don't think we necessarily get, I'm changing my prediction here a little bit. I don't think we necessarily get an improvement in the Mafia storyline, but I think we get more Frank Cosgrove Jr., and it's an improvement in general, just with his character.
So let's do it this way. Does he survive the season? Yes or no? I'm going no.
I'm going no, because I said that I think he teams up with Ruth and he dies saving her. And I agree with I'm standing by that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's in a spot that they're going to try to do not necessarily a full-on redemption arc, but it does seem, I guess, as you get shot anywhere, it's got to make you, re-examine some shit. As a man getting shot in your man parts, I can think how that could definitely make you reevaluate your life choices or whatever. And if he's going to still go on with the Mafia type stuff, maybe he does it in a more honorable way, so to speak, or what have you, and that ultimately leads to his downfall. But like you said, possibly does improve that whole Mafia storyline. And again, it's an interesting one, because they've had really good actors doing both. His pops has been in a bunch of stuff. I forget the actor's name. I'm sorry, but he was great, and I love it. It just again a little bit of a story thing. I think sometimes they've had too many plates spinning on the the sticks that they're juggling or whatever, or the chainsaws, and sometimes I think it would help a little bit as we go on here to lose a couple of these characters, because I think the more you condense kind of what's going on, the stronger it'll be towards the finish here.
Totally agree with that, Magnum Mills. Let's get to a couple of characters here.
All right. How about Javi? Because it sounds so nice. How about Javi?
I just love the way that works. It just rolls off the tongue. I'm going to stick with my predictions here, Magnum Mills, and that is his ego eventually destroys him. He's going to have wild success, and then somehow, some way, his ego will be the thing that takes him out. I do hope that he remains the wild card, the loose cannon that he is. That is frightening, exciting, all the above. You don't know what the hell he's going to do. It's terrifying, but you can't stop watching it. I really hope he continues that, and I do not think he lives to see the end of the show.
I mean, I can break mine down actually two fairly detailed, but pretty simple, in that he dies at some point. I think Ruth kills him. I'd like Charlotte to kill him, but he kills Maya Miller before all said and done, and possibly Omar, depending on how that. Maybe we should talk about him next, but I think somehow it's going to come to a head where like 2 men enter, 1 must leave between Omar and Javi, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly like 30 men go in the water, 2 men live. It's not exactly a Jaws situation, but you're right. I think they might beef, and that takes us right to Omar Navarro. Man, oh man. For me, Magnum Mills, I originally hoped that we started to understand what happened to him in his role, like what kind of the backstory behind his decision to kind of go and decide to talk to the feds and all this kind of stuff. And, I still think something happens between, him and Javi. Is he still calling the shots? Is Javi completely in control? That remains to be seen. Will that create a rift between the two of them? Quite possibly. And I kind of called it a little bit of a double cross here. I think that probably happens to some shape or form. It could even be a double cross, like a double cross squared, where or a tricer, a triple cross. There could be a lot of things there. Somehow, some way, though, I don't know that he's done with Wendy Bird or Marty Bird or the cartel. I think he's still involved here throughout this season. And, one of the questions I had was how exactly he could get leverage on Wendy. And I think he kind of planted some seeds, saying he's mostly disappointed in her. Clearly he wasn't happy with how that shook out. He's sitting in FBI custody. He didn't get what he wanted at all. There's got to be a price to pay for that. Somebody's going to have to pay for that, right? I mean, he's the head of the cartel.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, that he is going to have to try to make his move from prison or what have you, and he's going to try to obviously flip it on Javi, and somehow it's going to work out where, like I said before, 2 men enter, 1 was, only 1 leaves. And I think Javi comes out on top here, and he kind of uses that to frame Omar for other stuff that, he might have done, that the FBI can pin on Omar to kind of let him keep doing his thing where he's acting like he's cooperating while he's still doing whatever the fuck he wants.
I agree, dude. I mean, so you're, in your opinion here, we get a similar dose of Omar that we had in the first part of season 4 in terms of his screen time and his role.
It wouldn't even surprise me if he's the first one to go. I really think what the show is going to do is start. I don't think we're going to lose a lot of main characters at the end of the day. Maybe some people go away or go to jail, but I think what you're going to do is see a little bit like kind of what Game of Thrones did, and kind of be like, all right, who can we trim off around the sides without necessarily chopping the head off too early? So it really wouldn't surprise me if we see some of these ancillary characters, especially those involved in, the mafia, FBI, cartel plot lines, because those are the kind of people that obviously, some shit can happen. It's not a real 9 to 5 kind of job. So yeah, I think that, those are the people that would kind of be the most likely to, ship off early in the season. But hey, who knows? The show could take a main character off the board early, and that would really throw me off.
I think Omar continues to play a role here. So your opinion, he doesn't make it to the end of the show. So you think?
Yeah, I don't even know if he makes it to episode 3, of part 2. So that would be, I guess, episode 10.
So you're saying right here, right now on the Ozark podcast, everyone listen up. Magnum Mills is making a bold claim here. Both Javi and Omar Navarro die. So The cartel, 2 heads, the top 2 men in the cartel are done.
Neither one of them seems to be that. Yes. You can think about how we replace the cartel enforcer every year. Do these people strike you as being super durable? They'll find another one. They'll find another Navarro. They're the opposite of Highlander, dude. They'll keep going down the line. And it doesn't even, I don't even know if it's like a King Ralph situation. I don't think you're going that far down the hierarchy. I think, one of their bolsters of the world or what have you, for to do a Better Call Saul reference will step up. One of their capos will step up or something like that, take over.
Oh, great John Goodman role there as King Ralph. That would be an interesting one, Magnum Mills, to break down on silver screen.
It's been a minute since I watched King Ralph. I cannot lie. It has been a minute since I watched King Ralph. And by minute, I mean the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Easy. I was,
probably got it on Blockbuster last time I seen it. It's on VHS.
It's been a hot one. Let's move on to the kids, Magnum Mills, and let's start right at the top here with Charlotte. I really want her to peak and reach her pinnacle here. Like, we started to see her kind of turning into the mini Wendy. Could she be better than Wendy? Could she do it with a little bit of a heart? There's questions here I have with her. I want to see her just kind of get to her eclipse, like find her high point, get there and land. It's been a slow build with the kids. You think the kids have been involved in this storyline really since Jump, and they've slowly be kind of taking on more and more of a bigger role. I want to see Charlotte really reach her pinnacle here and kind of be a better version of Wendy.
We think she's old. Like, to me, she feels like she's 24 or something like that. The character's still like thinking about going to college or whatever. This is where the timeline thing comes up a little bit. And I think it totally makes sense. We've seen her kind of get into the whole idea of really making this a job or whatever. And I'm just worried that now she is going to get caught up in it somehow. Like, Jonah kind of wants to just do it to like prove himself, you know what I mean? To show how good he is. And I think he likes the intellectual challenge of it. I think Charlotte could get enthralled by, kind of the money and the glamour and the risk and the adrenaline and that kind of thing. So I'm switching it up a little bit there. And I'm going that, she tries to, she thinks she's going to, out Wendy, but, her age kind of shows that she gets herself into some trouble.
Hard to argue that. Let's go to the other bird kid and talk Jonah. Man, I said that there was going to be some continued beef between Wendy and Jonah. I think that will certainly start off the season like that. Hopefully by the end of the season, the hatchet gets buried there. I think he'll either get into trouble and or do a very big, bold thing. And that could be something like killing Javi. That could be something, I had this thought of like, maybe Javi is getting like aggressive with Charlotte.
Well, we've seen him handle guns before and get into the hunting and everything like that. So he is far more likely to.
Well, and he pulled a gun. I mean, he thought about doing it with Helen. Like, he's been close a couple times, right? And he's had Buddy there to kind of back him. I think maybe something happens where Javi's forcing himself on Charlotte, and she's upset and telling him to stop, and he's moving forward, and Jonah maybe shoots him from the back or something like that. Like, I think he might actually suit somebody in this back half here.
I like that. 4. That's a feasible but bold prediction. I'm going to go with something similar. Like, it looks like kind of the wedge is getting driven in there, but then somehow at the end, it's part of the way Marty makes his deal with the FBI or gets out of the cartel or whatever. Somehow him and Jonah do some kind of crazy, like, money laundering team up, whether it's stealing all the cartel's money or like faking shit to get people in trouble with the FBI or something. Somehow they like do the Voltron thing and combine their fucking computer money laundering powers into some crazy ass shit that is kind of the key to the whole big twist or something like that towards the end of the season. So that's what I'm going with. All right. Man. So, I mean, it's kind of that we did all the stuff, right? So it's kind of like there's only 3 left. So it's a big 3. I think we both know we're going to leave Ruth for last. So let's go girl, boy, girl. So we'll go Wendy, Marty, Ruth, and I'll make you talk first about Wendy first.
As bad as she is, I love Wendy. I want to see her just accrue massive political power. Like, I love political Wendy. She's just so freaking good at it. Like, she should have been on House of Cards. Like, she is like, she's just incredible, dude. So I really want to see that. I think she probably, some of her lies start to kind of show itself here, either with her brother, with him being a drug addict. I think something catches up to her, and it causes an issue for her, a crisis, And, she does whatever it takes to get through it, even if it means more lies, hurting people she loves, it doesn't matter. But I think she's going to have, several issues, crises that pop up, and she's going to figure out a way to get through it like she always does. And she will hurt others in doing so, unfortunately.
I like that. I think that's a pretty, it kind of dovetails with what my initial prediction was. I think I'm going to stick to it. Is that she kind of keeps, Breaking Bad, so to speak, early in this back half of season 4 here. And then she does something, she crosses some line that something happens in such a way that just makes her finally like do a little, be rabbit and just snap back to reality. And maybe that is her lies catching up with her or something like that, or actually seeing one of her kids go to jail. I just think, or she actually pulls the trigger on somebody or gives the direct order to do so. I don't know, but she just does something, and it finally just brings her back into the fold, so to speak.
Does Wendy Bird live to see another day? Well, you said yes. You say all four live, so she's alive for you.
Yeah, I think she gets out, but she's in a place with Marty where Marty can trust her to like look after Charlotte and Jonah. So they have to reconcile, even if they're not necessarily going to be husband and wife going forward. They have to have some sort of reconciliation. And honestly, I think for the Birds to make it out alive, they all have to come together. I think that's the key. If they're not united, at least to get out, I don't think they can get out. So put it that way. Then that leads us into Marty. And I've been pretty clear with this one. And I think Marty is going to somehow, work out some kind of deal where ultimately he gets the rest of the family into witness protection, and then he goes to jail. And then who knows, maybe he either joins a family, maybe he joins up with the FBI, maybe he just goes and does his own thing, who knows. But I'm going with somehow Marty finally more or less takes the deal that was originally offered to him in some way, shape, or form.
Man, oh man, this one was tough. I made a couple of predictions. One was he hopes that his kids still love him and they remain safe. I totally think that applies, and I'm sticking with that one. That's the easy one. The other one is he thinks he does everything right, but it's not enough, and his deeds are punished by dying in the accident. I'm going to go back on that a little bit. I don't think he dies in the accident, but I did say one of the four of the Birds have to go, and I think it's either Marty or Wendy. I'm going to say it's Marty, and I think he dies here at the end.
So, to reference, so, it's not John dies at the end, but it's Marty dies at the end.
Yes, Marty dies at the end, except, we're not going to write a book or make anything other than this podcast, but I do think
thankfully,
he dies.
Slight spoilers for Back to the Future, but Marty lives there too. So we like it when Marty lives generally, I feel.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Whether it's Marty McFly or Marty McBird, or a combo of the two.
I like Marty McBird. Wouldn't that be awesome if that was his his alias? He just grows a mustache or a goatee and just calls himself, Marty McBird.
McBird, love it.
So I mean, there's only one. It's Highlander time, right?
Dude, one ring to rule them all. It is Reem. Ruth rules everything around me. Ruthie, get the money. Langmore. She is Ruth. And look, dude, I said she's going to get her revenge, and somehow, some way, she will. I think deep down inside, she wants to have love and happiness. I hope that she gets it. I think we joked around saying maybe she hooks up with Frank Jr. I could see maybe there's a world in that. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but would it totally shock me? No. I do think it's possible that they start working together, though. I absolutely think that that's not only possible, it's likely a Frank Jr. and Ruth kind of connection here. Is she the last one standing? Is she get everything that's supposed to come to her and more? I hope so, but in the end, I think there's multiple people standing, but I think Ruth is definitely going to make it out of this and get some sort of closure and be set up to at least have things work in her favor, maybe a little bit going forward.
I think I agree with the gist of what you're saying there, and I'm going to kind of tie this into something you're not quite expecting maybe here, and say that I think at the end of the day, I pretty much agree that Ruth is more or less the winner, in that she's there in Ozark at the end. I don't know that any of the other players are still there. I don't know if the cartel's there, the Snells are out, maybe the Birds are out, and she's kind of there on her own. So I'm thinking just the kind of the final scene in my head of the show, and I'm going to ask you what you think the final scene is. And for me, it's her in the Riverboat Casino, in the office, just kind of putting her feet up on the desk because she kind of runs shit. So Jamie G, who do you like, just off the top of your head, what's the final scene of Ozark?
I would love it to be Ruth. I'm going to say it's Ruth, but I'm going to say it's Ruth in her car jamming to something awesome like Notorious B.I.G. Just happy with a smile on her face. And,
All right,
and
so
that's enough for me.
I'll go because I'm going to go a little bit deeper and ask you who gets the final line of the final episode, the final line of the series. And I'm going to go with it. That final scene with Ruth sitting there, you get a voiceover by Marty that's kind of similar to the one we got to begin the series with him talking about what money is and that kind of thing. So I'm going with that. You know, my final scene is Ruth sitting there at the desk, feet up, and Marty kind of giving the thing, talking about money and power and everything. So who you got? Who's giving the final line of Ozark?
Scratch, coin, dinero. I love that. Dude, I'm giving it to Ruthie. I'm giving it to Ruthie. I think she makes one. She says something to.
He just turns right to camera, breaks the fourth wall, and says, "And now you know shit about fuck."
I would love that. No, I think she drives off, and as she drives off, she says either something to Ben or something to Wyatt, and she says it out loud, and she smiles.
I could see her in a graveyard or something like that, maybe, and says some profound shit or whatever, but kind of in her own dirty, foul mouth with Ruth Langmore way. That would kind of be the way to go.
Or Wyatt, we finally won. Something like that. Like I could. Yeah, I could see.
Yeah, there's something.
Or she takes over or she takes that baby, and the last thing is her saying something to that baby.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, I don't really want to. I hate kind of like, I don't want to talk about it. Baby is really a bargaining chip or whatever like that. So we really didn't bring it up. I'm just gonna, you know, like Maya Miller's kid too, same thing. I'm just gonna hope that all the babies and small children all end up fine, and they should not really be involved in the game here.
Yeah, well, I mean, but they did. This one's a little bit different though, Magnum Mills, because they did set it up where she ran out of that house after seeing,
right, with her in the pickup truck, right? It's just the two, right?
Just the baby. So it's like, you know, something's got to happen with that kid, unless Darlene's still alive, and we'll find that out here. My guess is
so. One more before we get out of here, just without thinking about it. When it comes down to the end of these 7 episodes, Ozark, the finale, would you prefer it to be something that's a definitive end, or something that maybe leaves it a bit open-ended where they could continue to do more in the future if they wanted to?
Oh man, that's really tough. And I'm going to take the cheap way out and say a combo platter. But hear me out, Magnum Mills, before you get mad at me. I want there to be enough to give me closure to where if they don't do something else, I'm comfortable with it. But I also want there to be enough kind of left in this universe to where they could pick it back up and do something, or do a spinoff, or make a movie, or do so. I'm a fan of that. I like the idea of, like, you know, the thought that could happen.
I think that's the best answer, obviously. You know, not really spoilers, but kind of, you see Peaky Blinder walking a similar road where that they had a series finale, but there's also going to be a movie and possibly some spinoffs after. So you don't want to take that off the table. But on the other hand, you don't want to shortchange the viewers who've stuck with you through these 4 seasons. And especially because I think they're ending on their own terms a little bit. I think it will be fairly definitive, but my guess is they're going to leave, you know, it's pretty obvious, right? If they're leaving someone over for a spinoff, it's Ruth.
Yeah.
So that really comes down to, like, Julie Garner, and they seem to have a good relationship with her. You know, Netflix, and, you know, Netflix is going through some shit right now. So
yeah, it is.
They might want to kind of, you know, they've kind of avoided maybe doubling down on their existing properties, and, you know, wanted to cancel things too soon rather than too late. Now you might see them get maybe a little bit more invested in the franchise game and that kind of thing. So I can see them having a definitive ending for the birds, but maybe leaving it open-ended enough for Ruth. But I have to go open-ended just because I want to be able to see more Ruth Langmore. Other than that, you know, really deep down, I would love a definitive, like you said, like they all die in the car accident or something. That would be absolutely nuts, and people would talk about it for a long time. It would probably be better for the long-term legacy of the show to do something kind of over the top and definitive. But from a personal standpoint, I do enjoy these characters and this world and everything, and I wouldn't mind revisiting it. So I'm going to have to go with the open-ended.
I love it, Magnum Mills. We did forget one character though, bro. Maybe we should just throw him out there. I know we saved Ruth for last, but we forgot about 3.
I thought he was entering the NBA draft this year. I just figured he's going to be fine. He's going to be first round draft pick. He's like 9 feet tall. He's just got to stand on his tippy toes and he dunks it. So he's all good.
Bro, he might get drafted this weekend in the NFL draft. I mean, he's legitimate.
He might get drafted in multiple sports. I mean, he could. He's like 4'30" or something. I mean, dude's a monster.
Yeah. He's a monster, and he's basically 29 years old. I mean, it's remarkable.
Maybe he's going to be in the Peaky Blinders spinoff. Who knows?
He might be. It's room for 3. I love it. There's a lot to do there. Magnum Mills, this is it, baby. The next time the people see us, we will be here discussing episode 8 of season 4. The first episode of part 2 of season 4. I mean, can you believe that the end is already here for Ozark, bro? I mean, this is wild.
Yeah, I really originally, we did this, we thought it was going to be, they'll stagger these things, so we figured it would come out, July, August or something like that. No problem, but it is sooner than expected. They're going to drop all the remaining episodes, all 7, on April 29th. That might be the end of Ozark on the show when you binge it, but the Ozark podcast is far from over. I think what the plan is, we're going to do 3 episodes the first week it comes out. So next week after you're listening to this, we'll do the first 3 episodes. Week after that, the next 3 episodes, and then finally we'll sit down, do the finale, give it its proper due, room to breathe. After that, we'll reflect back on the second part of the 4th season as a whole, the show, that kind of thing. And hopefully it's going to leave us with a lot that we want to talk about. Very excited for it.
Absolutely, Magnum Mills. I am hyped the F up for these episodes. Cannot wait. And honestly, dude, I'm not going to lie to you here, man. Cards on the table. I got a little bit of the nerves flowing here. I'm a little nervous for how this might end. I mean, I've gotten attached to these characters and nerves are popping up here, but not to worry. It's okay because I've got our audience to get me through all of it. Thank you very much for checking out the Ozark podcast. We truly appreciate it. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, email us. Does not mean a ton to you, but it means a ton to us. Helps us out a lot. Magnum Mills, tell everybody where they can find all of our other content, which is currently 100% free.
And as far as I know, it'll stay that way. And we got a lot of stuff going on right now. Obviously, this was the Ozark podcast on your favorite podcast platform. On social media is Ozark Podcast. We're currently covering the 6th and final season of the show Better Call Saul on AMC. We're the Saul Over Soon podcast on your favorite podcast platform and at Saul Over Soon on social media. We're also going to be covering Barry from HBO. Kind of random, just a great show. If you haven't been watching it, you should check it out. Only 16 episodes, half hour each in the can so far. Season 3 is just starting. Great time with the Barry podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform, on social media at Barry Podcast. We just wrapped up finishing Peaky Blinders on PvP, Peaky Blinders Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and social media at Peaky Podcast. And finally, we stay covering It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because the gang are terrible people and we love them to death. We're the Night Pod Cometh on your favorite podcast platform, on social media. And we're from the Joe Blow Football Show, JoeBlowFootballShow.com, social media at Joe Blow Show. Thank you very much for checking out the Ozark podcast. I'm Magnum Mills. He's Jamie G. And until next time, you'll need to remember 2 things. First, dirty money ain't worth a damn thing.
And the bird is the word. We'll see you next time. Bird, bird, bird. Bird is the word.
So we actually are going to have to get the rights to the Surfing Bird song at some point.
I mean, it's become a thing. So we have to, we kind of have to.
That should have been a prediction. Like, what are the, yes or no, do we ever hear Surfing Bird in the Ozark show?
The bird is, in fact, the word. See you next time. This has been the Ozark Podcast, presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. We are not in any way, shape, or form affiliated with Ozark, MRC, Aggregate Films, or Netflix. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Any views or opinions expressed here are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations who may or may not be associated with the Joe Blow Football Show. If you have any questions, please contact us at ozarkpodcast@gmail.com. That's ozarkpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment.